So, okay, so I will be brief quite. Well, I would like today to talk a little bit about lying and organization. Just some general sketch, some general problems which I found, or which, well, basically some general problems which I see when we are trying to put lying with organizations. What does it mean when an organization is lying? So, well, probably everybody can imagine some kind of lies made by an organization. Basically, in all advertising, you can find some examples. Does it work? No, it does not. So, like these snake oils. Snake oil, basically the cure for everything. You can buy it. It can cure cancer. It can cure anything. This started from the 19th century, but basically at the beginning of 20th century, this was acknowledged as a lie. And also the people were given fee by claiming that their oil can cure anything. So these days, you cannot have such an oil, snake oil, which can cure cancer. Of course not. These days, we've got a cannabis oil, which can cure cancer. So you might find out some books about cannabis oil, how this can cure cancer. And basically, this is considered to be lying, or it's at least deceptive. At least. But when we are talking about cancer, of course, we are usually talking about lying because this is a really serious matter. And when you are promising somebody that this can cure you, it's really hard on those people. Well, you might find out lots of these examples, especially regarding the cases involving food and involving some kind of produce, like in cases, or for example, the Skechers, they claim that you can get in shape without setting food in a gym. Well, this does not work. It's pretty shame. Okay, so you can get in shape without setting food in a gym just by using their Skech boots. And all of these others you quite easily find out on the internet. Snapchat claiming that you can delete an image and it will be deleted forever and it will be nowhere. Of course, it was not true because, well, there's always some kind of trace on internet and all of these others. So I got three main questions. Are today's approaches to lying and bullshitting applicable to lying and bullshitting done by an organization? This was my main question. How can we distinguish between lying organization and a lying member of an organization? And what conditions have to be met to determine that an organization is lying? I will go really briefly through this all. So, when we are talking about organization and talking about lying or deceiving, we can say that who is lying or deceiving in organization? Basically, speaker can be lying, management can be lying, employees, third person, like when we are talking about speaker, probably everybody can imagine the Czech speaker for the Czech president or some other speaker. In management case, you can imagine these cases from the 1990s with tobacco companies. In employee, well, employees usually lie about some special cases in organizations, like in HR, they are lying about how the organization is established and these kind of things. And third person, this is a lie that somebody else is lying for an organization, like the influencer or something like that. But of course, the organization itself can be lying. And how is that? I'll go through it. So who is lied to? Of course, basically the public can be lied to, the state or other outside organizations, potential buyers, employees, and also you can lie to organization itself. This, when we are talking about lying to an organization, when you look at the numbers, you will find out that there's approximately 3.5 trillion each year for lying, for costs, which are made by lying to the organization, but there are lots of hidden loss, like trust breach, climate, employee engagement, and these kind of things. So, about what we might organization lie or deceive? Basically about anything. So produce is one thing, advertising, economic situation like tax evasion and these kind of things, organizational settings, who's paying for some kind of thing, or who is the owner of the organization culture and climate. This is usually in HR, in human resources, when people from human resources lying about how good culture or good climate is an organization to future employee. These all are well-established cases in organization as lies. So about what? So this is advertising. The one case about HR is a psychological contract, where there are reasonable expectations from a future employee, and this can be not settled by some kind of explicit contract, but this can be only deceive strategy that the organization promised, not directly, but it seems that it's promising like future career or something like that, but it's not going to with this promise. It's not going to be done. So these are some kind about what organization might lie or deceive, and psychological contract is basically something what is considered usually that is not explicit. So this is case of deceiving much more than about lying. When we look at the conditions of 4 conditions of definition of lying, so we've got these 4 conditions, and we can go, because we heard lots about them, so I'll go just straight to the problems, some problems which are connected to organizations. So when we talking about statement condition, basically this is easily said that when we've got an advertising, there's not necessarily somebody, some specific person to be responsible for this advertising. So this can be considered as an organizational statement, also press releases, because these are usually well crafted. But the problem of ascription, there will be always. So when you are saying that some organization is lying, the organization to this criticism can say basically, it was not this organization, this was some rogue employee who lies for the organization. And this is a scapegoat problem. How to establish how you can ascribe a statement to an organization? I think, and it seems to me, that the basic way how to do it is to look at the reaction of an organization. So if the scapegoat is well established as a strategy, as a reaction to criticism regarding lying, well, this can work, and the statement cannot be ascribed to organization. But in other cases, like in fully apologizing or bolstering or these kind of cases of organization reaction to criticism, this can be easily said that this statement was put forward by an organization itself, not by some specific person, but by the organization as a whole. When we look at the untruthfulness condition, organizational knowledge, there's some specific theory about what is considered to be organizational knowledge. It's not simple knowledge. It's not the knowledge of the simple person, of the singular person. It's the knowledge of the whole of the group of the persons, and also you got a knowledge about which is done and which is based in organization, in its material, and in these kind of things. We can also say that regarding organization, we can put forward a strict restriction. The organizations not only know something, but also should know. And in cases where we are talking especially about food or drugs or food supplement or these kind of things, we can say that when the organization intentionally not searching for some information, this can be also some case when they are basically they do not know, but they should know, and if they should know, it's enough to say that they do know. So there should be a presumption of general knowledge in the given field, especially in the drug industry. Presumption of general understanding of the target audience. The last case, the presumption of general understanding of the target audience, can be seen in the this was quite nice case about foot-longs, foot-long Subway sandwich. And basically, this sandwich can be foot-long, but not in the foods which are usually used, not in the same size as is usually used in the given target, in the given audience. And there was a struggle, legal struggle. The Subway says, the Subway was sued by some buyers, and they say, but this was not exactly meant to be foot-long in the terms of these measurements, but this was a foot-long in the terms of different measurements. Finally, the Subway won. They won the struggle, but still, it can be seen as deceptive strategy because we can apply a presumption of general understanding of the target audience, especially regarding the huge companies like Subways, which should behave in a rational manner. So addressee condition, there's a problem of plurality of audiences, and especially when you've got the eavesdropper problem and you've got the targeting messaging, any organization which puts forward a public statement should have to acknowledge that the audience is not only the general public, but also, for example, police. And in this case, the organization should presume that anybody can be listening. Therefore, the general or public releases are meant to be for everybody. But the plurality of audiences is difficult when we are talking about deceiving, that in some cases you are not deceiving some part of the, or some audience, but not the other. So conditions of lying. So when we look at them, when we look at the intention to deceive, so we've got the problem with the collective intentionality or problem. It's quite good established, especially by Searle. But this establishing of collective intentionality basically says that we can do a lying by association, so somebody can lie by association to some organization. There's also another way how to establish this. If their organization did have some intention to lie somebody, and this is also this can be also done, at least I do think that this can be done by looking at the reaction of organization when you criticize it for lying. So when we look at those questions, are today's approaches to lying and bullshitting applicable to lying and bullshitting done by organization? I think that they are applicable. We can use them, even with all of their disadvantages, even with all their problems, but still, we have to acknowledge that there is a different notion of intention. There is a collective intention, as put forward by Searle. That means that even though that some member of the organization, there's not have to be any member of the organization who have intention to lie, but still the organization can be considered to be lying and intentionally lying, or intentionally telling something what can be considered as a lie. There's a different notion of knowledge, especially that even though that the person who is asserting some claim or who's put forward some claim did know about the truth value of the claim or did not have any kind of belief about it, still this is a knowledge of the organization, not knowledge of some specific person. And there's a difference between lying and deceiving and bullshitting, and this basically it means that we can find out this in the reaction to criticism. So basically how these organizations are react to criticism, and therefore we can ascribe it to organization as the, for example, when organizations apply as a reaction the full apology, they have to acknowledge in the full apology the situation and also the harmfulness of the situation. So therefore they are acknowledging that they assert or did something what was terrible, and therefore we can say that they were lying, and if this is case of criticism regarding lying. So these kind of reaction can help us to decide if this is lying or deceiving or bullshitting. How can we distinguish between a lying organization and a lying member of an organization? Well, basically this is the same thing. We can do this by looking at the reaction of an organization. So, for example, when we are looking at the reaffirming the position, like in a case when there is some kind of legal defense or attacking the accuser, well, we can say that this was intentional and this was done by an organization, not by its member or by its member only. So what conditions have to be met to determine that an organization is lying? Well, all four, but basically the addressee condition is somehow problematic because there's a questions about the scapegoating, which is also these kind of things, and intention to deceive addressee conditions. There's the questions of collective intentionality and reaffirming position. So to conclude this short talk, I will say basically that I do think that it is possible and sufficient enough when you want to determine if some organization is lying, not its member, it's not just a mistake or something like that. You should not look at the statement itself, and you should look rather on the reaction when you criticize the organization. Because the reaction has to be established in a way when they are reaffirming the position, or reaffirming the statement itself, or when they are saying that this is not the part of the organization's behavior, or this is not part of the organization of the behavior of the given organization. So when you look at those reactions, especially and there are several theories about how organization reacts to criticism. So, for example, in Benoit image restoration theory, you can look at which of these reactions is reaffirming the position of the organization. So you can say that this was a deceptive strategy by an organization, or this was lying by an organization. Well, yeah, and that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Tomáš. If you have some question, you can ask it now.
Thank you. I really like the talk, and I wanted to ask you if you have read the paper that recently came out by Lucky, in which he discusses group lies. So I will just briefly, I'll briefly mention what she says. You know, it's just one view that you can have, but basically, the idea is that, you know, you don't have you have literature on collective intentions, and you've mentioned how that would fit into your bill of how lying works when we deal with organization. Mm-hmm. But the idea is that some philosophers in philosophy of action in particular have also been thinking about like whether we can have a belief as a group, whether we can act as a group. And basically Lucky's proposal is to sort of buy into that, in particular in her own view, because she has a view of what it means to have a group belief and a view on what it means to make a group assertion. And the idea there would be that you have a case of lying only in case you have someone who, a group that makes a group assertion and has the opposite group beliefs, and in doing that they have a group intention to be deceptive. I think the view is this. I'm not 100% sure, but anyway, just wanted to say she seems to be with you in the idea that we can sort of take whatever we have said about singular lying and translate it into something about how groups work when they lie. But she seems to be different in her view. Well, I'm not sure about what your view exactly is, so my question would be, where do you depart in that respect from the view that Lucky has recently defended?
Okay, so basically, what do I believe? That, well, you can have a lie made by an organization even though that none of its members know something about, for example, its truth. If it's truth or does not have any belief regarding this assertion. You can have an assertion, for example, made by a speaker, which is quite usual, who simply says something and does not care about the true value of it. Simply doesn't care. Just try to say something what he should say or what she should say in the given moment. That's one thing, if I'm getting it right. I do believe that, especially in Searle and in Bretman, and Searle in collective intentionality, you can have a collective intentionality which is somehow consists of individual intentionality, but still it's something different than the individual intentionality. If you are playing football, the whole group of people are just running on the field, but if you are looking at them separately, you don't know nothing about football. So I, for example, as a attacker or some of the members of the team can say, well, my intention is to just have a fun, but the intention of the whole group might be different than my simple intention, which is only the part of the intention of the group, or somehow it gives some possibility for an intention to be sufficiently done, or for an intention for us to be able to make this goal or to have this similar goal. There's a different definition of an organization, which I really don't like because this does not acknowledge. So, organizational in one basic definition is considered to be something which consists of members which do have the same goal. But this is not usually the true for a huge organization like a subway. If and you don't care about if you sell more or less, you care about your salary. So your goal is totally different than the goal of the organization, and the organization has to appropriate this goal somehow for the organization to be able to be successful in achieving its goal. And this is the same in this. Like the goal or the intention of the group can be different than the intention of its part, of its members, if this is not directly against in a way that it really somehow struggles. And even if it's directly against it, in some cases it is still possible for people to be there. Because this is the case of misbehavior in an organization, and we always have some kind of misbehavior in an organization, and that's the case of being lying by association. For example, the management group, the group of the managers, can vote that they are doing some action. And even though that you are against it, as a part of this group, as a part of the manager board, still the voting, it says, well, this is a decision of the whole group, not of few individuals. So therefore, you are, in this case, you will be voting or you will be deciding by association for something which you don't agree for. So this is the same law. I'm not sure if I'm getting this.
I was more, but I don't want to monopolize. There is another question.
Thank you for question.
Thanks, Tomáš. I actually had a similar question like Neri, but I think you have a different conception of lying, because groups cannot have a belief, you know. So if you would try a traditional definition of lying and accuse an organization of lying, how can you accuse it? You know, organizations don't have beliefs. So and I think that Neri was going in a different, I'd like to read that paper, I haven't read that paper. I would recommend maybe Julia Staffel, she wrote a paper, it's in the same, it's in the same handbook on communalize, I can't remember the name. But anyway, can I suggest an alternative definition? So I think that we should construe lying as intentionally misrepresenting an assertion as legitimate. So I don't think that we should talk in terms of whether I believe what I say or not, or, you know, we shouldn't consider credence. I think that what matters is whether I think that I can legitimately assert something. So I can believe what I say, I can believe that Iraq has weapons of mass destruction, but if I know that I have absolutely no evidence, or just some incidental reports, you know, how would you say it? It's not incidental, but a second, that's not genuine evidence, then I know that I cannot legitimately assert that. And if I represent this as a legitimate assertion, I would say that I'm lying. Now, this would capture your cases of organizations. An organization doesn't have to have a belief, but if they know that they cannot legitimately assert that this is a foot-long sandwich, then they are lying, and we can accuse them of lying legitimately.
Yeah, that might be probably more suitable even for me, because when I'm talking about knowledge,
the way Neri presented Lucky's position, I wasn't actually convinced by that position. I'm not sure how we could ascribe intentions to organizations, even joint. I need to read the paper. Thank you. Yeah, I like to talk. I don't know whether I said that. And thank you for putting up with me.